Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That's me. This is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to just give a quick overview on OGC, some of the programs, talk a bit about some of the business value stuff, and put in an example. Business value is something that is quite hard to find anything documented within the industry. There's very, very little on it. So I'm hopefully going to give some ideas about that and present something that has been out there for a while but isn't being presented so much. Hopefully you all have one of these, which is a memory stick, which has a report on it, OGC Standards and Inspire. And it also has some other stuff we've done with other organizations in Europe, such as Eurogeographics. So if you don't have one, please put your hand up. So this is a wordle of a lot of the detail that I put into the presentation. You can see here there's a random assortment of things that OGC caters for. And I'm going to try and, I'm not going to specifically talk about environmental stuff because all of the panelists are going to talk about that. But I'm going to talk from a higher level about some of the areas where OGC is involved. So we're addressing, from an environmental perspective, we're addressing a whole host of different activities, issues, problems, things that have to be tackled on a global scale. And one of the key things about the OGC, if anyone was in the earlier session, they were talking, Richard from Snowflake mentioned cross-domain issues. So one of the things within OGC, if we do it right, is we can, across the different working groups, when something takes place, we can share information. So the work that's done on developing the standards can be used for multiple domains or communities of interest. So this is one example from the Met Office where they had flooding in the UK, and they wanted to share the information between emergency first responders, hydrologists, forestry. There were a whole host of different people who had shared the data, so to make the data shareable, it had to be interoperable, so they were using OGC standards. And one of the things within the OGC, the consortium itself, is we're talking about different working groups being able to work together and look at the language or the semantics that are used in the different domains. This is the OGC website. I've put this up because this gives you an idea of the different types of domains where OGC is involved. So in aviation, for example, we've been working on something called AIXM, which is the Aeronautical Information Exchange Model. There are a number of different application schemas or profiles for different communities of interest or different domains based on OGC geography markup language. So within these different domains, each of the different members or organizations that contribute are looking to have standards that meet their requirements. And so for them, the business value is being able to share information within their own communities of interest. So I asked, because it's environmental, this is from one of our members, the European Environment Agency. So from them, these are the reasons why they're involved in the OGC. This is from Franz Daphner, who works there. And I'm not going to go through because you can all read and you'll hopefully get a copy of it. But one of the points I wanted to bring up was this last one about OGC and ISO standards. So OGC standards do become ISO standards. WMS, WFS, GML are ISO standards. And there's also a JAG, a Joint Advisory Group, between OGC and ISO. So I think that's important for this community to recognise that there is a working relationship between both standards developing organisations. And then here you can see where OGC standards fit in within the different activities that the European Environment Agency undertakes. So this is not an official statement. These are my words, but this is what I believe OGC is. It's where it's more than just the standards development. There are discussions around a whole host of areas which are underpinned by the standards development activity, but these are policy, technology, legal and governance issues. And the 76 people you see here are a third of the people who were in Exeter in the UK at the Met Office last week for the OGC Technical Committee and Planning Committee meetings. So the policy aspects are really important. Everything we do, if it gets into policy, then it filters down and it makes OGC's job much easier, because with things like Inspire, if you have the legal guidance and you have the technical guidance, within the technical guidance, OGC standards are recommended. So if we get into, the more we get OGC standards into policy, then the easier it makes for people to adopt the standards and to start to do more of the work developing the standards. So across the world, there are, including Inspire, there are a number of places where the standards are included in policy. So I'm breaking my own rule here, which is never put a pie chart in a presentation, because you can't read it if you're in the audience. However, I've left it in because I know that you will get a copy of the slides. So there's just some information in here about the number of members we have and the number of standards, which is actually wrong, because that's now increased, that number. But the bottom bit about the alliances, that's really important. That was brought up in the earlier session this afternoon. And OGC does work. Sometimes we struggle to find resources to do it, but we do work with a number of different standards developing organisations to make sure that the work they do, which is more and more getting it into geospatial, looks at the work that's been done by OGC, and they don't try to reinvent the wheel or do geospatial stuff that they might not be qualified to do. So one description for OGC is a network of networks. So I called it a node on the IT network, but a hub on the geospatial network. Because anything that happens from a geospatial perspective in the industry, we tend to be involved somehow through the members, because there's almost 460 members now, and our members are doing so much more activity than just the core activity of OGC. There are 4 programs that underpin the OGC, and if you look on the right-hand side, it goes through this series of activities from rapid interface development, standard setting, testing certification to market adoption. And each of the programs, these are the programs within the structure of the OGC. So the program that I run is a marketing communications program. So things like the OGC blog. And one of the things I'm going to do is make you aware of a lot of resources that are free and available for you to use. So the OGC blog, we started probably about 9 months ago. There are now thousands and thousands of people subscribing and going up every day, which is good. At the end of every month, we do what we call the OGC update, which is a summary of all the monthly blogs, as well as press releases and events coming up. And again, that's free. Then we have the OGC network, which is, it says here, resources for and by the community. So this is for members to put their own presentations and other information up here. And this is the kind of place you would go if you want to find out things like all the different GML application schemas, application profiles. They're all listed on the OGC network. And then we have a series of OGC wikis, or twikis. So I've put this one in, the Met Ocean one, because of the environmental aspect. But you can go on and this is a publicly available Twiki, and you can see the type of work that's going on in this area through the OGC. And then we have a LinkedIn group. We have almost 5,000 people on our LinkedIn group. And again, that's growing day by day. And there's a short time lag on the button. Or I'm not pressing it hard enough. Okay. Then we have the interoperability program. You see here, it's about putting together candidate standards. It's essentially organizations coming in with a business problem where standards can help around interoperability. And this is really, to me, is the crux of the OGC, because it's not just creating standards that are pieces of paper, it's about testing the specifications. So putting together these candidate standards, having change requests and demonstrable implementations, and then producing at the end of it a public engineering report. There are different types of interoperability initiatives. Again, I'm not going to talk through all these, but you can see here, depending on the scale and the complexity of the pilot or the project you want to run, there are many options. The next slide is about the ROI on the OGC interoperability program. And it essentially says that, here we go, that for every dollar or euro invested in the interoperability program by a sponsor, they get somewhere like 3 times return on that investment. Now, these figures have been hidden away in the OGC for a long time, and I'm trying to promote them as much as I can, because these are real measurable return on investment figures. So if you think about the current OGC Web Services testbed, it's running at something like $3 million. If you were to try and do this outside the scope of the OGC, it would cost you $9 to $10 million, because OGC does all the project management, vendors give their time and software, and sponsors give the money that pays for the costs. So it's a really great program within the OGC, and it's good for sponsors because they get this return on investment, and it's good for vendors because they get early insight into what's happening, system integrators and vendors. And then we have the compliance program. So a number of organizations claim that they have OGC Standards compliant software, but if you want to check that, you can go into the OGC website and you can actually get a list of certified OGC compliant products. And there are a number of implementing products, something like 680, but there are actually only, there are much less that are OGC certified compliant. So be careful when you're checking the difference between the two. And then there's a wiki again for the compliance program. Then we have the standards program, and this is really where the magic happens. This is where all the work is done around the standards, about developing the standards, retiring standards, modifying standards. And this is probably what most people know as the OGC. I think most people think of this first when they think of the OGC. So that's why I wanted to put up the other programs to show the sort of the breadth and depth of OGC. We talked earlier this afternoon about change requests. There are a number of different types of documents come out of the OGC, and a lot of these documents are freely and publicly available. Again, I'm not going to go through each one of them, but it's just to let you know that there's a wide range. You can also, even if you're not a member, you can also contribute in a number of different ways through the website and through responding to requests for quotation, requests for information. Then there are OGC fora around the world. We have, most recently, we have a Nordic forum, so Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, and possibly Iceland and Estonia. They're all working together to look at topics that are of interest to them regionally. And these are the types of things that they're looking at. So they're looking at how to coordinate participation in the OGC and how to promote those activities. So these are some of the reasons why organizations join the OGC. These are the types of issues that they have. So I've called that information integration. And these are some of the things that we tackle. There's a lot of value associated with being able to share geospatial data within these different areas, so across different nations, languages and cultures. I think that's an important thing for the OGC, because OGC is completely international. It's a global organization, so I can understand people from Australia. There are, just in Euroweek, there are people coming in from all different continents and different regions. It's helping people work within and across their organizations, and also within and across industries. So for me, there are three key things you can do in terms of trying to understand the value of interoperability. Is looking at, is the activity for public benefit? What's the business driver for it? And does something already exist? If you can answer those 3 questions, then you've got a good handle on how to address interoperability. So I wanted to show, everyone talks about the NASA report from 2005, but actually there's a great report that was done in Spain, or in Catalonia, which shows they wanted to measure these different, the efficiency, effectiveness and socioeconomic benefits of an STI. You can see here, it shows you an image integrating topographic, orthophoto, environmental and urban planning data from 3 different servers. And this is based on OGC standards. So from a business value perspective, there are some figures here in terms of the launch costs and the operational costs to set it up. And all this information is taken out of the report, so you can access that yourself. So as part of the costs, the breakdown of the costs, they have OGC WMS included in that. And it talks about how they split out the human resource costs during the launch and then once it was set up. And there were a number of benefits that were qualitative and a number of benefits that were quantitative. And if you look at the last line here, the study estimated that efficiency benefit accounts for over 500 hours per month. So what? So what does that mean? That means that if you take this hourly rate of 30 euros for technical staff in local government, they saved 2.6 million euros. So that's, those figures are pretty impressive. And it's one of the few reports that actually details to this level from a business value perspective. And you can pick up the report here. And we have Luis Colomer sitting here as well, who's been heavily involved in all of this, probably even responsible for it. So value has to be measured. Taking from the other study, the NASA study, there are a number of different ways to measure value. They used a value measurement methodology, VMM, and they picked 5 value factors. So these are things that you can use to apply against the work that's been done with standards. You have direct user value, so things like data availability and ease of use. You've got social value, better decision making, institutional effectiveness, and for a lot of people here, taxpayer, efficient use of taxpayer resources. Then you have government operational value, which is this kind of interagency collaboration and things like IT performance. And I guess Gianluca will talk about some of this kind of stuff in his SDI presentation. Then you have what most people think about first, which is cost avoidance and cost savings. But actually that's just one of the 5 factors. So that's why I've put the 5 factors in to show that there are more than just the financial elements. And then you have this strategic and political value. And I'm almost finished, Athena. So out of the report, it's quite a long report, and again I'll provide the URL for it. But I like this statement that talks about how the standards make the distribution of the geospatial information understandable for all the stakeholders who are involved in the work with standards. And we have now in the OGC, we have something called the Business Value Subcommittee, which is looking at, traditionally what OGC has done is been around this level, programmer and software developer. So we speak the same language as these people. We kind of speak some of this language. We can speak this on an ad hoc basis, but we don't really speak this or this language. So the Business Value Committee is going to be looking at trying to refine the message for the different levels of stakeholders who are using standards. So just to end, this was a global survey that we did. There were over 300 organizations responded to it. And you can see here, the survey was on the business value of open standards. You can see here there are a number of costs that you will incur to participate in the standards activities. You have a technology user perspective and a technology provider perspective. And so yes, you have to take the costs into account, you have to be aware of that, but there are also benefits. And I think if you participate in the process, then the benefits outweigh the cost. So I need to finish, so you're going to get access to all these slides, but I just wanted to leave all that information in there for you to, when you're having your cup of tea at night and you're reading through my presentation, you can access that information. So that's me. Are there time for questions?
Thank you, Steven. One short question, and otherwise I would, okay. You took him.
Yes. Yeah.
I can provide you the link as well. Yeah, I can do that. Okay, thank you very much, Steven.